Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon, folks.
All right. Good afternoon, Chad. Can you hear us?
I can.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it. We know that your time is definitely most likely well booked on your schedule. So thank you for giving us a little bit of that before this weekend. Let's go back to COTA for a second. I believe you were in Texas this weekend. A big monumental moment for Hendrick Motorsports. What does that mean to you, just as an individual, but also what does it mean to the company as well?
Oh, geez. It was so many levels of coolness happened. Obviously, the inaugural event, the COTA, having that 268 kind of circled in the corner of my whiteboard now for about a year and a half as we've been approaching it. And to be able to get that 800th victory for Chevrolet was just awesome. Obviously, the guys and the gals that work here at Hendrick Motorsports over the years have all contributed at many levels to get these wins, and to be able to tie Richard Petty Motorsports is just awesome. Obviously, as I grew up as a young man, the king was the king, right? And everybody wanted to be like Richard Petty, and I know the amount of respect that Mr. Hendrick and everybody here at HMS has for Richard and his whole organization up there. It's pretty awesome to be able to tie those guys.
Awesome. Well, we'll now take questions from the media. If you have a question, friendly reminder, just raise your hand within the Zoom platform or send us a note. We'll get to as many as we can. And to kick us off, we're going to go to Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Chad, I'm wondering if there were any wins. I've been trying to work on a list of wins of that kind of personify Hendrick Motorsports and why they tied Richard Petty Motorsports, and was curious if, as you look back, if there's any wins that stand out to you.
Any wins that stand out say that one more time, Bob? I'm sorry. I think I misunderstood you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I don't think I heard you completely either. So ask your question again.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do a list of wins that personify Hendrick Motorsports. Let's kind of say this is why they tied the record. When you think back of like, okay, this is when is kind of what Hendrick Motorsports is all about. And I'm curious if there are any that stand out to you.
Oh man, there's so many. Obviously, I think back on the ones that I think were challenging, that maybe we were able to pull off as an organization that maybe we shouldn't have. You can go back to a couple that I was a part of. The $1 million win at Darlington with Jeff. We weren't as fast as what we needed to be at Darlington that year. We made a bunch of changes to the race car throughout the course of the race, and we're able to come back and win that race, right? So that's a big one. There was a 600-mile race at Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600 that we won, that we had an alternator issue. We had to change batteries towards the latter stages of the race. We're all the way back in the back of the pack, and we're able to charge up. And I think we passed Bobby Labonte, I think it was, on the last lap coming to the checkers. So those types of races and the tenacity that I feel like that we've had with our drivers, our teams, our crew chiefs at Hendrick Motorsports is what really makes where we are today possible. Obviously, there were a ton of races that were won prior to me ever getting here or being a part of it. But I can tell you this, the reason I'm here is because I wanted to be a part of Hendrick Motorsports, and I wanted to be a part of a winning organization when I was a young man. So there's a lot of pretty critical ones out there.
And I was curious, on my list, I included the 2004 one in Atlanta, the week after the tragedy. That I'm curious if you could take me back to then, and just what did that do for the organization? Yeah,
obviously that, 2004, we won at Martinsville. That day was tragic, and never forget that day. Was tough. But the thing that I remember the most is going to Mr. Hendrick's house that night, and the strength that he had, saying that we're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing this, and showing up here at Hendrick Motorsports saying we're going to go to Atlanta and we're going to race. And for us to be able to go there and race that next event as an organization in the manner of which we did, which was tough. It was really hard. It was hard to get through the weekend. but what was really amazing is once we dropped the green flag, everybody knew what we were there to do. We were there to try to win that race, and we battled Mark Martin to the very end, and were able to beat him. Leading him at the end of the race and then be able to get that checker flag. That was one that really set this organization up for just a can't lose, never die type situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, Chad, I was just curious, for people like myself who don't know the ins and outs of race cars, can you explain in layman's terms why stock cars are just not good in the rain? Is there an answer to that?
I don't know that any car is quote unquote good in the rain, right? I mean, street cars that are designed to be driven in inclement weather, if it's raining out and it's hard to see, you slow down, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is. Quite honestly, I felt like that our cars performed extremely well in the rain situations. The drivers were able to steer, turn, brake, accelerate, race. I think the cars performed really well. The issue was the spray. So the visibility is difficult, but that's like that in any form of racing or in the street or anything, you're going to deal with that. So I don't think that our car is, bad in the wet conditions per se. I think it actually performed really well. So I'm not trying to twist you up at all on that. I'm just saying that I don't think that there's any car that's really good in the rain when you're behind somebody else. That's a tough position to be in.
So is it more just of knowing how much water is too much water to compete in, and not necessarily, like you said, the cars being the issue?
I think that there's probably an element of that for sure. I know a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing the race and in NASCAR and all that went on last week, but to be honest with you, I think that the only way to learn is to do. And could some decisions have been made? NASCAR has admitted it. Could they have gone to single file restarts a little bit sooner? Would that have helped? Yeah, I don't disagree. But you don't know that, just like racing on the dirt. You don't know that until you do it, and you learn from your mistakes. So it's an environmental thing where you just got to get yourself immersed in there. You've got to do it. You've got to get in the environment, understand the situations, and then make decisions as you go. And that's unfortunately what we have to do. And that's what they did. And I think NASCAR did the best job that they could under the circumstances. And I feel like they learned a lot, and we'll just grow from it.
Okay, our next question will come from Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Chad, there are times when a crew chief change is made. Sometimes there's a little bit of a bump of performance and the new crew chief gets the benefit of it. But reality, I mean, the cars were already placed in order and a lot of the work had already been done. Yeah. So in that light, I want to ask you, you've made this move to this new position. Certainly Hendrick Motorsports was moving up last season, but now that the season has been a spectacular start for you guys, where are you able to put your hands on? I think there's, and look, deservedly so, you're getting credit for some of this, but I would say some of this was happening last year. What kind of impact are you making, or when might you have even more impact in your role of overseeing these four teams?
I guess I don't really know exactly what you're asking, but I can tell you there was a lot of things that we.
Let me ask this. I'm sorry. Is this your impact? How much of an impact, and is it more now than it was at the beginning of the year because you were transitioning into the new position, or do you feel like you've had an impact from the beginning?
Look, it's hard for me to know exactly my contribution. You would have to ask people that are probably, out working with me and alongside me, that question. I can tell you that we've been working really hard since middle of last year as an organization to try to get flipped, to get our performance where we needed it, because we weren't where we needed to be middle of last year. And that wasn't a happy place for anybody at Hendrick Motorsports. And we decided at that point as a company, we were going to put our heads down and dig and get to work and right the ship. And by the end of the season, we were fortunate enough to get out there and win a couple races in a row and pull off the championship in pretty dominating fashion with the 9 car, right? So I think that we've been going down this path for a while, right? Have I helped? I hope so. If I'm not contributing, I probably won't keep this job very long, right? So I think that we as an organization have really put our heads down. We've really focused on performance. We've really focused on teamwork and working with one another. Bringing in an amazing crew chief like Rudy Frugal to be able to work alongside of Cliff and Alan and Greg, I think was a huge asset and a huge boost to our company. So, and then you bring in a guy like Kyle Larson, who's an amazing driver, and put him alongside the other drivers that we've had and have been growing here at the company. Man, you got a pretty good army of folks to go to the racetrack with, right? So I think that's what you're seeing, is you're seeing a lot of the fruit from the labor and the effort and the work that these guys and our teams and everybody at Hendrick Motorsports have been putting out there. Our pit crews are knocking off really good pit stops consistently, which is great. You know, so there's a lot of things that are going right that, you know, they're months, you know, in the works, and hopefully we've got more to come.
Also, weather certainly impacts racing and has for years and years. And I'm curious if you can kind of take me through, you know, how the evolution of the devices, the technology that teams use to monitor weather, how it compared to when you were starting as a crew chief, to what are the things that you guys are doing? Because I'm guessing that makes as big of an impact on anything in a lot of ways for what you guys do in terms of setups and race stuff.
It does, Dustin. You know, if you're talking directly to the rain, you know, when we made our decision, you know, wets versus dries and all of that at the beginning of the race, clearly nobody had it right, because every race team had a couple go in each direction, basically, right? So we unfortunately are still just like a weatherman on TV. Man, you're lucky if you get it about 75%, you know, and that's kind of it. But we've got our weather apps, we've got our weather programs, we do all the things that most people do. And there's somebody that's going to listen to this and say they have the next best idea, I'm sure, and we'll listen to it and we'll try to employ that as well, like we have over the years. But weather is weather, man, and it changes quickly. At a track as large as COTA, it's really difficult to manage that, because you can have a band of showers, as we all know, that goes across one portion of the racetrack that the other side, it's not that bad. You know, one thing that was really interesting on the weather aspect last weekend is the way the pit stands were set, the way pit road is, and they've got like a tower of suites behind there. 3 of our teams were kind of where the suites were, and the 5 car, who was on the first pit box, he was outside of that. When I'm sitting on the 48 pit box, I'm like, man, it's not raining that bad. It's not too bad. You know, you can see the sprinkles coming down. Well, as I hop down and I walk down to the 5 car pit box, those guys are soaked to the bone. And you just don't know that if you're not like in the environment, right? So still the best weather app is just taking your hat off and seeing if it's raining or not, and then you can stick it back on.
Last thing I ask you is, with the next gen, are you getting parts and pieces at this point? And when do you hope to have a car built or have a car ready to go for a session?
Yeah, so Bristol, we have tests scheduled. I guess that's August, right? So that'll be our first on track with that. We are starting to slowly get some parts and some components in. It's going to be quite a transition and quite a process, but it's an exciting one for sure, and it's the future of our sport. So I'm glad to be a part of it, and glad to be a part of the transition, because it's going to be unique. You know, how we pivot, how we change, how we test this car, how we race this car, how we inspect this car. It's all going to be brand new. We're going to be learning together as an industry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Anton. Go ahead, Anton.
Thanks, Amanda. Good afternoon, Chad. So back at the start of the year, have you expected Hendrick Motorsports to have such great form as it has now?
Anton, I hoped. I'll be honest with you. I was hoping we would, but the expectation, no, I didn't expect it. I felt like we would come out. I felt like we would run competitive. Obviously, there's key races that I kind of had circled that I thought we would run really well at: speedways, road courses, you know, some intermediates. I felt like Richmond was going to be a struggle for us, which ultimately we were able to get the win with the 48. So no, I didn't expect it to be at this level. but I'm very thankful, and it just shows the hard work, the dedication of the folks that are working at Hendrick Motorsports, and how the never quit attitude has really risen to the top, and everybody's digging in deep. The crew chiefs are communicating at such an amazing level. They're having conversations as opposed to just data driven and data transfer. So it's really an interesting time right now at Hendrick Motorsports.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Alex Weaver. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, CK. First of all, I have to say I have enjoyed the social media this season. It's been really fun. But we talked about that momental day that was COTA and hitting that 268 mark. I know you guys have had that circled, but another big number is going to be that 269. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So have you thought about that day and what it will mean for the organization and how much that Rick Hendrick has played a part in this sport?
Gosh, honestly, Alex, we've had 268s circled for so long. I don't even know what 269 is going to be like yet. We're really excited to be, right there close to being able to get that, and I mean, obviously the 600 would be an awesome time for us to get it right here in the backyard of Hendrick Motorsports, but I'm excited about it, Alex. I really think that we've got an opportunity to go out there this year and hopefully get that before the season is out. That's definitely the goal. What Mr. Hendrick has done for this industry, the racing community, as we like to call it, is just nothing short from great, right? He has contributed in so many manners. He's touched so many people's lives. Whether you've worked with Mr. Hendrick or raced against Mr. Hendrick, he's done something for you in some capacity. And just to have that type of presence in our sport, I think is just fantastic. So it's going to be an honor to celebrate that with him. Obviously, I'm a huge Rick Hendrick fan. He's been a mentor to me since I was 21 years old, and has really helped me along with my career. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. I can't wait to give him a big hug after we get it, and we can go and hopefully get more.
Thank you, Chad. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right. And we're going to take one final question here from Lee Spencer. Lee, go ahead.
Super. Thank you. And thank you, Chad, for joining us.
Yeah.
You're a fairly modest guy when it comes to performance and what have you. But, we've asked a lot of the drivers and crew chiefs, whatever, in the last couple of weeks about Hendrick Motorsports. And we didn't even have to ask Chris Gabehart when it came to Hendrick. He mentioned it 3 times during his discussion. And, I'm just kind of wondering, once you start like a bonus.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You mean just them talking about us? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, clearly, Denny, it doesn't take much to rattle Denny. And I mean, clearly you guys made an impression this year.
Yeah, there's a lot to that, right? Mental toughness is part of any competitive environment. And if you can get people to think about you more than they're thinking about themselves, or even just a portion of their brain power focused on what you're doing, you definitely start to get an advantage. We've been able to do that over the years at different times with different folks. We've had people do it to us as well. So yeah, absolutely. I think that when you can get people looking at what you're doing and being consumed with what you've got going on, that takes a good portion of their time away from making their cars go better and their strategy go correctly.
Super.
All right, Chad. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it, and we will